Golden Doves, page, class 236, page 142. On the bottom of the page, by converting the entire oral law into different types of coins, universally accepted as legal currency, Rabbi Akiva freed the student of the need to search for authorities to authenticate and evaluate the traditions that he had received in study. So basically, the idea is you have these halachot, and you have many halachot over the course of generations of hachamim transmitting halachot, and you don't know, can I rely, somebody transmits a halakha to me, and I want to know, can I rely on this halakha? Is it authoritative? Perhaps it's defective. Now you have the Gemara, exactly what the Gemara does in analyzing topics. Now, this is of course pre-Gemara, this is pre-Mishnayot. So comes Rabbi Akiva and introduces a brilliant concept, which is the same way when you have a coin and the king mints the coin or impresses his seal upon the coin, we know how much silver it has, and that coin becomes legal tender and authoritative, or how much copper it has, as the case may be. Similarly, how about we create coins of halachot? A very brilliant concept, right? So halachot that we know have been properly authenticated and properly organized. Hence starts the Mishnayot. Right? And then you could rely on those halachot and learn them and study them and teach them and transmit them. Let us remember that a sage, Hacham, was defined as he who could uphold lekayem, his studies. Very interesting, the word lekayem, because in Hebrew we have kiyum shetarot. So what is kiyum shetarot? So somebody presents a contract before the court, and the judge now needs to evaluate, is this contract reliable? Maybe it's forged, maybe there's something wrong inside the contract itself. So they examine it, they see the witnesses, they decide that the witnesses are valid, they decide that the shittat is valid, and then they give it their, so to speak, their seal of the court that this shittat can be relied on. That's called kiyum shetarot. So, Chacham is the person who keeps mekayem what he studied, meaning he has the ability not just to receive halachot from his teachers and transmit them, but he can evaluate. So if somebody brings a halakha to him, he has the ability to evaluate the validity of that halakha. That's what a hacham is. Lekayem is a legal term meaning the certification of the signatures in a legal document, right? Like the Beit Din certifying the witnesses who are signed on the contract. Without this ability, one may at best be intelligent, navon, like an impoverished bank or shulchani ani, who requires the backing and certification of others. So there's a shulchani ani. Shulchani ani is a banker who doesn't have is not an expert in coins, and he doesn't know what the weight of a particular item is. So he needs somebody else. The shulchani ani, a money exchanger. Think of a money exchanger. You bring some gold, or you bring some silver, you bring some coppers, and you see these coins, and maybe the seal is not proper. And now the shulchani, the banker or the money exchanger, needs to determine, can I rely on this or no? And he doesn't quite have the ability. He's very intelligent. He's an avon, but he didn't reach that level of expertise to independently certify the value of this coin. That's a navon. So he requires a shulchani ashir. Okay, and unlike a wealthy banker, shulchani ashir, who is independent, because shulchani ashir, he's an expert. He can look at the coin and say, oh, this seal is a forgery, or this coin doesn't really have the gold that it supposedly is supposed to have, right? So he is a shulchani ashir who can independently corroborate the value of the coins. Okay. I'm looking at the footnote. This is Sifreh. Okay, fine. The rabbis illustrated a similar situation by recourse to the following metaphor. Suppose that two strangers come to a city. One has unminted pieces of gold and the other has copper coins. So on the one hand, you have a person, he's carrying gold, actual gold. Another person has copper, but the copper is in the form of coins. It has the seal of the king, of the treasury. The one who has unminted pieces of gold would not be able to make purchases, that is to convert the gold and subsist. but the one with the copper coins would be able to make purchases and subsist. I want to go to the supermarket now. I give them I have a bar of gold. They're not gonna know what to do with it. What do you want to do with a bar of gold? I don't know. Is it real gold? Maybe it's not real gold. And then another person comes with a couple dollar bills and he buys himself something. So likewise, a master of the Talmud, Baal Gemara, could find himself in a place where there are no sages to authenticate his knowledge, whereas a master of Agadah, or popular preacher, would easily find a public which recognizes his knowledge. So now we have a Baal Gemara. So Baal Gemara is the Gemara. It represents the lessons in the yeshivot, which have been well and precisely edited and thought out and taught and organized properly. All the various relevant halachot are organized in that lesson. But if there's no chachamim there, then there's nobody to authenticate what he's saying. But a master of Gemara, or popular preacher, everybody knows that the tefillin you can only put on Mishiyakir et Havero B'Chok Daled Amot, Mishir et Havero B'Chok Daled Amot V'Yakirenu. That's a popular thing. Everybody knows that. So people will take that seriously. So the one person only knows Agadot, which is a popular Agadot, which everybody is familiar with. So everybody's good. Oh yes, he's correct. That's right. Elsewhere, this type of preacher is designated publicly wealthy. That is, one who has ready money, and therefore gives the appearance of being rich. So of course you take the other person seriously. But this is a problem as a rabbi. A challenge that I have is sometimes when I see that the popular halacha is incorrect, it's people have a difficult time accepting that. But everybody says, for example, praying mincha after sunset, ben hashemashot. Of course you can pray ben hashemashot. Everybody says so. Everybody knows so. Everybody knows the Pesach of Rav Ovadia Yosef. You can pray after ben hashemashot. Of course, l'set kochavim. But then, let's say, as an individual who knows actual sources and who understands the sources firsthand and studied the topic and studied the sugyot and studied also what Rav Ovadia Yosef says and disagrees with Rav Ovadia Yosef on this point. So the point is, my knowledge is greater than the knowledge of the simple Hamon Am. Oh, of course you can pray after this, Ben Hashem Hashem. But because it's not a known Agadah, it's not fungible like a coin. Everybody recognizes this coin. Oh yes. And a guy comes with a bar of gold. Well, what do I do with the gold? I don't know what to do with it, right? So, or a diamond. But I don't know, is it a diamond? Is it glass? Like, how do I know? So it's very interesting. The notion that's being discussed here is really fascinating. Right, so you have the Baal Agadah is going to be considered more acceptable, what the Baal Agadah says, than the Baal Halachot, person who knows a Gemara, for example. Elsewhere, this type of preacher is designated publicly wealthy. That is, one who has ready money and therefore gives the appearance of being rich. You understand the idea? It's an amazing idea. The Geonim, who were the heirs of the Talmudic academies and the undisputed masters of rabbinic tradition, reported that at first the oral law was not officially formulated. Each teacher had the right to teach it in his own words and to develop his own system. The effort officially to formulate the oral law began in the period when the scripture was canonized. This effort was associated with Rabbi Akiva. All the oral law, wrote the famous scientist and chronologist Rabbi Avraham Zakuto, came to us from his hands. Very interesting. So Rabbi Avraham Zakuto associates the organization of the Torah Shebe'al Peh into a fixed formulation, namely the Mishnah, as being the work of Rabbi Akiva. This is Rabbi Avraham Zakuto in Yochasin, Sefer Yochasin Mashalem. Rabbi Akiva's efforts and that of his school culminated several generations later in the Mishnah, the most authoritative formulation of the oral law. So now these halachot become, everybody knows the Mishnah. I mean, the Mishnah has been accepted by all the yeshivot, and therefore just quote the Mishnah. And you know that if you're quoting the Mishnah, it's easily fungible. It will be accepted as legal tender. In a profound sense, whereas the book is the source and beginning of knowledge, a testimony to our own limitlessness. The Mishnah is the end of knowledge, a testimony to our own finitude. That's really an amazing idea. So the Torah Shebichtav is almost infinite, right? Because Shemim Panim Torah, and every reader interacts with the Pesukim, and there's sparks of knowledge that perhaps other people never produce those particular sparks of knowledge. The Mishnah is the opposite. The Mishnah sets forth the Torah Shebe'al Peh in its fixed formulation. This now becomes the Torah Shebe'al Peh, the official Torah Shebe'al Peh, and everything else falls to the side. There may have been traditions of other Chachamim other than Rabbi Akiva, but the tradition that we have today of the Torah Shebe'al Peh is Rabbi Akiva. Hence, the Mishnah registers machlokot, division, controversy among the various schools and authorities, the very boundaries of human understanding. Mishnah formulation is also connected with the idea of repetition and change. Right? Mishnah, leshanot, lishnot means to repeat. Leshanot means to change, right? So you see the connection. Page 144, as the canonization of the Hebrew scripture marked the end of writing and the full acceptance of the book, the official formulation of the oral law marked the end of speech and the full acceptance of silence. We'll do this in the next class.